Good morning, Chair House Sage. I've admitted everyone from the waiting room, and we are now recording.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Agricultural Labor Relations Board. Before we get started, even if you're able to hear me now, we do have interpretation services during the meeting. In order to ensure good audio quality, please go down to the interpretation button in the Zoom app on the bottom towards the right, and please select your preferred language, either English or Spanish. I will now pause so that message can be relayed in Spanish for those participants that prefer that language.
Buenos días y gracias por acompañarnos hoy en nuestra junta. Hoy tenemos servicios de interpretación. Para hacer uso de esas herramientas, por favor, vea hacia el abajo de su pantalla en donde se encuentra un glóbulo. Allí haga clic y toque o escoja español o inglés. Aunque vaya a escuchar nada más en inglés, por favor elija ese idioma. La traducción va a ser en español en el canal de español que se puede elegir en el glóbulo hacia el abajo de su pantalla. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Santiago. This meeting of the Agricultural Labor Relations Board is now called to order. I will first go through the roll. Board Member Broad.
Present.
Board Member Flores.
Present.
Board Member Hall.
Present.
Board Member Lightstone.
Present.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, I will request a motion for approval of the most recent meeting minutes from our May 3rd board meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Member
Second.
Broad. May I have? Thank you, Member Hall. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and I was remiss in noting that in order to, if you do have technical difficulties during the meeting, please reach out to our staff members, either Santiago Avila Gomez or Devika Ganawardena. Their email information is located on the meeting agenda, which is available on the ALRB homepage, alrb.ca.gov. We will first have the open session business portion of the meeting, and then we will have the ability for the public to provide comment before the board goes into closed session. Please note, if you wish to make a comment, you may do so by indicating via email or via the Zoom chat features that you wish to make a comment. We do have limited ability to manage participation during the meeting, so we ask that when you are not speaking, please put your computer, phone, or app on mute so that we do not have background noise and we're able to hear the presentation. And if you need more information, please again go to the meeting agenda at alrb.ca.gov. Okay. First is the chair's report, or our next agenda item is the chair's report. A few updates. I am very pleased to share, since our last meeting, the General Counsel Montgomery and Deputy General Counsel Francesca Herrera and our Executive Officer Santiago Avila Gomez had a really rare and wonderful opportunity to meet with the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel, Jennifer Abruzzo, and we had a very thoughtful meeting. I want to share that she was very complimentary of our staff's work and the work that the ALRB does, and I want to share that with our General Counsel and General Counsel's regional office staff, that, you know, she is admirable of some of the remedies and provisions that are within our statute in order to ensure workers can access and exercise their rights effectively. So I was happy to hear that and wanted to share that with our staff. We had a wonderful conversation about various issues that are going on within our respective agencies, and discuss both forming a partnership with each other and other creative partnerships we can have with other government agencies in order to be more effective and hopefully better serve our worker population and effectuate the goals of our respective statutory schemes. So it was a really wonderful meeting and great to meet her in person while she was out here attending the California Labor Federation annual legislative conference. So I wanted to share that. Additionally, as some of you may have seen in the news, there was an unfortunate discovery of well, the discovery was good, but the what was found is very unfortunate. Of roughly 100 individuals, many of them farm workers in substandard housing with what appears to be connected with a plant nursery. We've been monitoring that situation. I've reached out to local officials as well as state partners. As you may recall, we had a meeting in August focused on the issue of farm worker housing and the challenges of getting effective housing. We know there's a housing crisis in California, and it's certainly very acute in our coastal areas and our coastal ag areas. And this was in the Prunedale Royal Oaks area, which is in Monterey County near Salinas. And I, through those conversations, have formed stronger relationships with both the Housing and Community Development Department as well as the Business and Consumer Services and Housing Agency, and have been having conversations since that time about ways that we can help amplify and support efforts to have more farm worker housing and ensure quality as well as oversight, because as we know, if you're dependent on your employer for both your livelihood and your literal shelter, there may be challenges in trying to address the conditions that every human has a right to have and to feel safe and protected and whatnot. So was very troubled to see that this was going on, and unclear how long it's been going on, but certainly knowing that there were workers and children there as well, it was incredibly disturbing. And so we've been talking with staff about how we can help support and also ensure that those workers are able to get adequate housing while conditions improve and they can have a long-term option. So I don't have a substantive update on that, but I wanted to alert the board that we're monitoring that, and I'm hoping not necessarily visit that site, but to get out to Salinas soon in order to kind of just see what's going on. That region, as we know, has been severely impacted by the storms this year as well, and already has a housing crunch even before that. And so it's a situation that many of us are concerned about in the administration and trying to work through possible solutions and ways that we can improve that for this worker population. They need it as much as we do, and they're absolutely, you can't do farm labor remotely. You have to be there, and it's grueling work. So we need them close and in safe conditions. So troubled by that. Lastly, but not least, I would like to turn it over to our communications and outreach manager, Daniela Ramirez. She and some other staff and board member Flores have been doing some wonderful outreach and meeting with groups in the Central Valley, and had a meeting last week that I wanted to hear more about, and certainly wanted to give the board the opportunity to hear more about it too, as we try and strengthen partnerships and meet workers where they're at. So Daniela, please take it away.
Good morning. So last Friday, Member Flores, Acting Baselia RD Yesenia de Luna, and myself, as well as Training Communication and Engagement Specialist Lucia Vasquez, our community. Lucia Vasquez attended. In person, we met with two organizations, reconnecting with Mari Perez, the ED, and Arturo Rodriguez of the Central Valley Empowerment Alliance Center. That was at the Larry Itliong Center in Poplar. And also for the first time, we met with Unidad Popular Benito Juarez, who primarily serves indigenous people, workers across the state, but are also based in the Central Valley. So there we met with Gladys Flores and Hector Hernandez, and just wanted to share that it was a really, really amazing meeting that was very insightful. We received quite a bit of information on ideas on how we can be more accessible to workers as ALRB, and how important it is to hear about past cases and how we've helped workers, was one of the ideas that they had for us. We learned a lot about the work that they're doing primarily in rural areas in the Central Valley and across the state, in particular with the indigenous community. And we really got a better understanding of the disparities that exist, particularly in the Poplar area, and really the needs that they have, such as basic health services, education, and really just basic infrastructure. So it was very interesting to hear about the diversity of the workforce in that particular area, which includes also Filipino workers, including Ilocano speakers, also Indigenous workers, a diversity of Indigenous workers, which includes speakers of Mixteco Alto, Mixteco Bajo, Zapoteco, Nahuatl, and Triqui. And we came up with some great ideas moving forward of ways that we can collaborate in the area and really be more accessible, such as the offer for us to attend some of their, be in some of their offices. They have a couple of offices. They have one in Poplar, but they're also in Lamont and Kern County, and they're opening an office, I believe, in Delano. So they're really open to us, attending, being there and being accessible to speak to workers and provide any information to them there. And we also have an upcoming training that we're going to be providing in Spanish to both of those organizations. Some of the things, the working conditions that they're most concerned with, or that they highlighted, are issues around wage theft, sexual assault, heat safety violations, and of course retaliation as well. So we're looking forward to collaborate with them on those two items and other outreach events across the Central Valley.
Thank you so much, Daniela, and thank you for taking the time to all of our staff and our colleague, Member Flores, for going there and meeting in person. I think that's so important. As I relayed about a month and a half ago when we had a meeting with COMPO, another Central Valley group comprised of, I think, a few different organizations, they've really stressed to us as well as other state agencies the need to improve how we engage and service this critical population. And I think I and our staff are really being receptive and trying to take that in. Certainly change and figuring out how we can be more effective is a challenge, but I really think physically going, and I'm grateful for many reasons that we're now in a position where we can do that and meet in person in a safer sense. For the most part, I really appreciate that, and just thank you, and please keep us updated. And I love to hear that there is interest in having these office hours. I think that's something that's been really successful in other areas. I know that requires a lot of work and time from our staff, and I just want to reiterate, I'm so appreciative of that, but I think it's so critical to do it. And I think it's a big investment, and it takes time, but I think it's really valuable and necessary for our work. And so I'm just appreciative of that, and I hope to hear about that partnership taking effect and getting off the ground, hopefully sometime soon. So thank you very much. Member Flores, I just want to give an opportunity. Do you want to add anything to that?
Only that it was a wonderful experience, and really want to uplift the work of the ALRB staff in coordinating such a thoughtful and really impactful meeting, and just speaking about just the importance of being present, being available, and I know that folks were very receptive to that, and looking forward to the continued relationship.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to go. I appreciate that. And then one final item. So as many of you may know, AB 113, which is the cleanup and clarification to AB 2183, which made numerous changes to the Agricultural Labor Relations Act, was passed by the legislature and signed on Monday, by the governor. And so our staff, have been reviewing that. We'll probably hear more about that from our chief board counsel during the legislation and regulatory updates. We are meeting to review internal procedures as well as update the frequently asked questions so we can communicate how those changes will work to all stakeholders, workers, unions, employers, and other groups that support farm workers, as well as the plaintiff and defense bar, or the union and employer bar, I should say. So those updates, I don't have a timeline, but we're hoping to get that out in short order. And I've already had several requests from groups to provide informational webinars. Nothing set up, but I want to reiterate that we are, I am a firm believer in that it's very important for government to help explain, what the rules of the road are, and the best form of ensuring rights are protected is knowing what the rules are and making sure you don't violate them. So I'm very happy to do that and make sure people understand the processes. And so please do not hesitate to reach out if there is a group that is interested in getting more information and having a webinar. So more to come on that. And that concludes the chair's report. Our next item is the executive officer's report on unfair labor practices, elections, and compliance with Santiago Avila Gomez.
Thank you, and good morning, Chair Hasid, members of the board. Thanks. Trying to get these mics set up just right. Today's report will be relatively short. Since our last meeting 2 weeks ago, there's been one admin order issued, and that was in Lily's Green Garden, Inc., 2023 ALRB admin order 2023-03. That issued on May 4th, and it was an order to the regional director to refile the request for leave to court, to seek a court order, The case number there, 2020 CE 025 SAL and 2020 CE 037 SAL, and involves the board's decision in 48 ALRB number 3. I should mention that this report and other reports will be posted on our website. They were posted earlier today, but as of about 10 minutes ago, there seems to be an issue with our website where they're not showing up for some folks. We're working on resolving that. Going on to pending matters, there's the Gerwin Farms, Inc., and the case number is 2012 CE 041 BIS and al, and that involves the board's decision in 44 ALRB number 1, the ALJ decision in the make-whole specification issued on January 20th, and briefing was completed on March 24th. Next is Lily's Green Garden, Inc., the site that I previously provided. The regional director, in response to the admin order, refiled their request for leave to seek court order on May 5th. And finally, Professional Technical Union Local 33, involving ALRB Admin Order 2023-02-P, which indicates as precedential, which issued on March 30th. That is going to be returning to the board in June, pursuant to the board's delegation to the General Counsel to investigate the labor peace agreement complaint that was filed. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Santiago. Our next agenda item is the litigation report, and we do not have one today. So I will turn it over to our General Counsel, Julie Montgomery, for an update from her. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Seed, board members. Good to see everyone here. So I'll start by just talking about some of the casework that our regional staff has been doing since the last board meeting. Our staff in our Salinas region conducted a notice reading to 30 workers in Santa Maria just since the last board meeting. And that was for Smith Packing, which is a case that was, it's from back in I think it was filed back in 2018. So it's been around a while. I think, it went through some various processes and iterations before we were able to get the order and the compliance done, but happy that that one is finally completed and that reading has taken place. We've also had a settlement in the Salinas region of a charge against Chalky Ridge Vineyard Management. And that was a case filed in July of last year, 2022. And this case involved a grape worker in Santa Barbara County who claimed that Chalky Ridge Vineyard Management retaliated and discriminated against him and others by changing their work conditions, including the assigned work location to a less favorable location, because they complained about working during extreme heat. So yeah, this is back in July, right? Or last summer when this happened. And the ALRB, Chalky Ridge, and the charging party entered into a settlement agreement pre-complaint, agreeing that ALRB agents will distribute and read a notice to the agricultural employees and the crew where the charging party works, and to crews in the ranch which is the general ranch where the charging party has worked, post a notice for 60 days and do all the regularly required mailings to agricultural employees. And the vineyard also agreed to compensate the charging party for lost wages, which amounted to $542 as a result of the alleged violations. So that kudos to our regional director, Jessica Arciniega, as well as Yesenia de Luna, who's currently our acting Visalia regional director, but she handled this case together. She and Jessica handled this case while Yesenia was an attorney in our Santa Rosa office in the region. I also want to mention that we had several new charges filed. I don't know that that was previously mentioned, but we've had several new charges filed in the Visalia region in particular during the past couple of weeks, and we have seen more charges come in just in general in this time of year, which is good. But I specifically want to highlight that I believe that some of those charges are a direct result of some of the outreach that our staff has been doing in the Central Valley. So, as you've heard, there's been some really good outreach and collaboration going on in the Central Valley. And so we have actually received some charges from workers who have learned about us through some of the outreach. And I also wanted to mention, that at the outreach meeting that Daniela Ramirez spoke about and Member Flores, that we also had our acting regional director there, Yesenia de Luna, which I thought was very important, that she made the trip down there to be physically present and speak with these groups. I just thought that was an important showing of commitment. So I want to thank her for that. And also our local outreach staff person, Lucia, was there as well. So thanks to all for that good work. And I look forward to hearing about more of that and establishing office hours, as we've seen in other areas. That has been a very successful model. We are also continuing our office hours in Santa Paula, which is in a more rural part of Ventura County. And the Oxnard office staff has committed to continuing those office hours. Our usual person who's been doing those office hours is currently on a maternity leave, but I really appreciate the other staff just stepping in and taking that over as well. So I think that presence and that continuity and consistency is with these nonprofit organizations in these communities is very important, because we don't want to be one of those. We don't want to be known as somebody who just shows up and says a lot of nice things and then is just gone one day, right? We want to show that we're there for the long haul. And I'll conclude my report just highlighting some of the outreach activities that the General Counsel Regional Office staff has been doing with Daniela's leadership. They've done a number of in-person presentations, and this is just in the last 2 weeks. So they were in Cutler, to migrant parents at a preschool in Tulare County. They did an in-person presentation to a group of Coalition Against Pesticides, also in Tulare County. They did a presentation to a migrant education program parent advisory committee in Napa County, a virtual training for Centro Binacional del Desarrollo Indígena Oaxaqueño, I think that's the full name, CBDIO, in Salinas and Greenfield, and also a in-person presentation to parents at again, farm worker parents at a preschool in Tulare County called Golden Valley State Preschool. In addition, they were in multiple locations, just distributing materials, canvassing, talking to workers. I have a long list, which includes events in Riverside County, Fresno, Lake County, Tulare County, Porterville, Huron and Fresno County, Madera Public Library, Mobile Home Park in Riverside County. So they've really been out in a lot of different areas throughout the state. And then finally, our staff provided a radio interview and Facebook Live presentation on the program Empoderando la Comunidad, which is hosted by Radio Indígena and Oxnard in Ventura County. So again, just want to acknowledge the hard work of our staff who's out there to spread the word and make sure people know who we are at the ALRB and what people's rights are and how to get in touch with us. So thank you.
Thank you, General Counsel Montgomery, and I want to echo the appreciation for our acting RD, who's really been on the road, and I've emailed a couple of questions of her, and she's been so responsive, and I'm really appreciative, and just want to acknowledge her presence, and then also that of our other staff. And it is heartening to hear that the outreach is resulting in really connecting with workers, ensuring they know where to go when they have an issue. So appreciate that. And also appreciate the update in particular about the settlement regarding the issue where there was heat illness. And I know we've discussed this before, but because it is such a problem, and as it is, we had all this winter here in Sacramento and many parts of the state, and now it just went literally from 0 to 60. It is really hot here today, I think. And just a reminder that when we get those cases, to make sure we do those referrals to other agencies like Cal OSHA or Labor Commissioner as appropriate, depending on the issue.
And that has been happening. I'll just jump in and say that our staff has been very good about referring folks to other enforcement agencies as needed. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And kind of going back to my roots, I just always, we have some great enforcement mechanisms in the state, and just making sure that we're being as effective as possible so workers are protected. So I appreciate that. Next, we have, we don't have an administrative officer's report today. There are no updates. So I will turn it over to Chief Board Counsel Todd Ratchin for both the legislative report as well as the regulations report.
Thank you, Victoria. I will cover the legislative report and then give a lead in on the regulations before turning it over to the subcommittee. To start, on legislation, as you hinted at earlier, on Monday, May 15th, the governor signed AB 113, which contains the cleanup language to AB 2183, which was approved last fall. And so that bill took immediate effect upon the governor's signature. It includes revisions to the labor organization certification processes enacted by 2183, and includes modifications to the non-labor, what 2183 had termed the non-labor piece election process for certification of labor organizations, and also includes statutory revisions to the appellate bond provision of 2183 requiring the posting of bond when appealing a board decision. A couple other items added to the report as well. There is Senate Bill 544, which seeks to make permanent temporary provisions that are currently in place, allowing teleconference meetings under the Bagley-Keene Act. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then the last item is a Senate constitutional amendment that proposes to amend the state constitution to recognize a right of Californians to organize and negotiate through a collective bargaining agent with their employers. Any questions about any of that before we turn to regulations?
I want to just comment on that last update regarding the potential constitutional amendment for essentially a right to organize. I'm still sorting through that. I think it's very interesting. You know, we've seen some states emphasize being a right to work state, and I kind of see this as the corollary of this would sort of make us a workers' rights state, which generally I think, you know, the California has strive to do that, particularly with our act, giving workers that are otherwise excluded from national protections the ability to organize and be protected for concerted activity. It does seem reminiscent of a series of bills that passed or were proposed, I should say, in 2017 with the election of Donald Trump after a fear of undoing various state laws that were reflexive to federal regulations, particularly in the environmental and occupational safety and health space. And there was a lot of discussion at that time about how do you measure when something is diminishing or is less than. And I think in particular, when you think of trade-offs, and this happens in the bargaining context all the time and certainly in legislative discussions, sometimes you do offer something else in exchange for another benefit. And just trying to figure out how that could work and the implications, which is challenging when you don't have something right before you. So we'll be interested to kind of see further analysis and discussion about that measure and be thinking about that, but wanted to flag that for all of us because it is something that I don't know. I don't know if there could be unintended effects, I guess. So do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Okay. All right. I will turn it over back to our Chief Board Counsel and the Regulations Subcommittee. Thank you.
All right. Before I turn it over to Barry and Ralph, just wanted to give a heads up that yesterday we issued and posted on our website modifications to our proposed rulemaking regarding the comprehensive package involving various procedural updates to filing and service and our unfair labor practice and mandatory mediation and representation procedures. Notice file Z 2022-1121-01. And so that is now out for a 15-day comment period that closes on May 31st. And then turning now to our other pending rulemaking involving labor peace agreements and implementation of AB 195. It's rulemaking files the 2023-0313-01. The subcommittee issued a report yesterday regarding a proposed modification to that package that I can turn it over to Ralph or Barry now if you want to take over. Barry, you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
This one. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now? Todd, could you just go ahead and describe the change?
Okay, not a
It's
problem.
one change to the regulation that we're proposing.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward on review of the package. There was one provision regarding the investigatory process of a labor peace agreement complaint. The subdivisions that allow for the use of subpoenas and also the parties who may petition to revoke a subpoena, consistent with other procedures, unfair labor practice procedures. It'll directs the filing of a petition to revoke a subpoena with the executive secretary, and then the next subdivision, C4 under, well, it's in the report, but regulation 2953, subdivision C4 had discussed the executive secretary ruling on a petition to revoke, and we proposed to just add a small clause there authorizing the executive secretary to he may rule on a petition to revoke himself, or delegate to an administrative law judge authority to rule on a petition to revoke, which is consistent with practice and our other administrative procedures. So just wanted to tie that in here. And that's the only modification we had to propose to the package.
So what the subcommittee would request of the board is approval to move forward with this modification, which is basically technical in nature and conforming to what our normal practice is. I don't believe it would be controversial, but you never know. This does not reopen the cannabis regulations. There were no comments received, so that comments for this, if you approve us moving forward with this modification, public comment would be limited to this issue alone, not to the regulations that the board has already proposed and for which there were no comments received. So I guess if you want me to, I can make the motion, or I would request the motion.
Let's first see, does anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, I believe you started to request a motion. I will make a motion to approve the proposed, move forward with the proposed modification as proposed by the Regulations Subcommittee.
All right, I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much.
I have one more thing to say, just to let the board know that now that the governor has signed AB 113, the subcommittee will be proposing as soon as we can, because it's that bill goes into effect immediately, regulations to implement the card check recognition system that bill now mandates on the board. So expect that hopefully for our next meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Swift work on that. Okay, anything else? Oh, thank you, Cynthia. Anything else on the regulations agenda item? Okay, all right. Moving on, we will now go to our public comment period. Do we have any members of the public in the queue wishing to make public comment?
Not at this time.
Okay. Give a moment. And if you wish to make a public comment, you can indicate a message in the chat or use the raise hand feature on Zoom or email Santiago and Devika.
None have been received.
Okay, thank you. The board will now recess into closed session, and when we return, we'll have announcements. All right, thank you.
Okay, everyone is admitted from the waiting room chair seat, and our recording is restarted.
Thank you. Let the record reflect the board has returned from closed session at 12:44 p.m. Our next agenda item is announcements. The only announcement that we have at this time is that our next regularly scheduled board meeting will be Wednesday, May 31st, at 10 a.m. And a friendly reminder that the bag leaking extension as of now ends June 30th. So we will be keeping the public updated on meeting locations and availability after that. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.